Hello to all my Burkinitos out there. Today I have got a great dish for you, one of my absolute favorites. It's called carne adobada, and in New Mexico we put this stuff on tacos, burritos, huevos rancheros. I put it in mac and cheese with rice and beans. We have it mixed with veggies. We just eat this on tons of stuff. Basically, it's shredded pork in a really spicy, bright red enchilada sauce, and you can see the recipe for that red chili enchilada in the card above or in the description below. And as you can see, I'm starting with a pork tenderloin here. You can also use pork butt. I like to use tenderloin because it creates a leaner mix, no fat in the shredded meat and everything at the end. But you can certainly do it a lot of different ways. So without further ado, let's get started. You can see I've cut these tenderloins pretty thick because I don't need to worry about cooking them all the way through. I'm going to shred them later. The thing I'm going to do right after cutting these is put them on the smoker at 165 with super smoke on for about an hour and a half. Once that's done, we'll be right back in just a second to show you what happens next. So I've just taken these pork loins off the smoker. They were on for about an hour and a half at 165. My oven just now finished preheating to 375 degrees. What I've done is I've added 2 quarts of red chili puree. If you want to see the video on how to make that red chili enchilada sauce, you can check out the card above or the description below. I added those 2 quarts of chili. I've added the juice from 1 lime, or if you're using bottled lime juice, about 4 tablespoons. And I've added some water. And at this point, I need to add enough water so that the tops of these are at least mostly covered here. And I've got to be careful putting this in the oven, but when I get this onto the oven tray, I'll put a piece of foil over it to keep the heat in for now. And you also want to keep an eye on it. If water starts to boil off too much, you might want to add some more hot water during the middle of the cook as well. So keep an eye on it, and we'll be back in just a moment. Now, these tenderloins are going to be cooking in the oven for several hours, but there's a few different stages where you're going to want to take them out and do some work on them. So the first of those stages is, if you're like me and you prefer a leaner product, you can take each chunk of tenderloin out one by one. You can use a bear claw like I'm using in my left hand there, and then just a large serving fork or a spoon, whatever works best for you. And you can just really easily scrape off that cap of fat from the top of the tenderloin. The tenderloins aren't going to shred at this point. They're still going to be pretty tough. But that's why we're going to be cooking them for several hours more. But at the same time, I do want to shred any portions that will shred open, because that will help get the flavors of the red chili deeper into the meat sooner and help it cook faster. So if things do fall apart some, that's great, and go ahead and go for that. But don't worry about even trying to shred it at this point, because it's just going to be too tough. And the great thing about pulling the fat off now as opposed to cutting it off at the beginning is that I still get a lot of the flavor from the fat, but I don't have to worry about having fatty texture in my final product. As you can see, this piece shredded a bit there, so that's great. I did that. But that's it for this portion of the cook. Once you finish scraping all the fat, place it back in the oven and let it cook for another couple hours before trying to shred again. We'll be back in just a moment to show you what that looks like. I've had the tenderloins in the oven for about 4 hours at this point. Now, the first thing you may notice is that the color has started to darken up. That's a good sign that it might be time to take it out and try to do some shredding. Now, in almost every case, you're going to have to do more than one shredding session. As you can see here, parts of it are shredding pretty easily. Other parts, especially towards the center of those tenderloins, are not shredding as much. These bear claws are kind of new to me. This is the first time I've made carne adobada since I've bought them. And, I tried it at first, but what I found was that the meat was so hot that it was burning my hands. So unless you have gloves, you don't mind getting stained with chili, it might be best to go with 2 big serving forks like I ended up doing here, where you can just reach in, grab the chunks, and start tearing them apart. And what I really want to stress here is that you don't have to get all of it shredded the first time. Save yourself some work. Let the heat do the work for you. put it back in the oven once you shred what you can, and let it cook further until the shredding is really easy to do, like we'll see in the next clip here. Another thing, you do want to add some more water at this point, because when you shred this meat, it's going to drink up a lot of water, and you'll see in the next clip just how much of that liquid has been absorbed into the meat itself. So keep an eye on it from here. You can leave it uncovered and just keep on adding water if it gets to a point where there's a lot of meat exposed, because you don't want it to dry out. You want this to stay a really moist consistency to the end. And this is my favorite part right here, when the carne adobada comes out of the oven. The whole house smells amazing. As you can see, the carne adobada drank up a whole bunch of that liquid that was in the previous clip, but there's still some puddles hanging around on top, and that's pretty much where you want it at this point. It shouldn't be a soup, but it should be very, very moist, and no dried out pieces of meat or anything like that. So I'm making myself a little carne adobada and cheese burrito right now, and not to brag, but yeah, I can wrap a burrito with one hand. It's a very New Mexican skill to have. But it is, again, one of my favorite dishes. I hope that you guys try this one out. If you don't know where to get red chili, you can look in the description for a link, and you can get some really nice puree sent to you anywhere in the country. It'll be frozen, and it will just taste amazing. I promise you, if you make this dish, you will not be disappointed. The full recipe is, of course, available in a link in the description below, so definitely check that out. And it is Gringo tested and Briqueño approved by this guy. I hope you guys love this video. Thanks for joining. Visit us at nmbbqtrue.com. Hit the subscribe button and the bell down below, and I'll see you next time.